Hey guys, today I'm going to talk a little bit about wrenches. There's a lot of different kinds of wrenches, and if you're just getting into tools, or if you're starting up your first toolbox, it's a big investment in money. And you're going to ask yourself, what should I start with? What kind of wrench should I start with? It's bewildering. You go to the store, there's hundreds of different types of wrenches, different companies, different manufacturers, 6-point, 12-point, box end, open end, adjustable, stubby, long, extra long, twisted. There's a lot of different kinds of wrenches. So I want to give you some basics about wrenches today, and hopefully it can help you select the right wrench for the right job. So let me set you down here on this tripod, and I'm going to go through each of these wrenches here. Right. So the first one I want to start with is not actually the one that's up top, but the most common kind of wrench. Okay, this one here is called a combination box end open end wrench. It's called that because on one end you have what's called a box end, which is a ring or ring wrench, and on the other hand you have what's an open end. This is the most common kind of wrench in use out there. This particular one is what they call a 12-point, because if you look at it, you see the little bumps in there. Well, that forms 12 points. Now on a 6-sided nut or bolt, which is the most common kind, it's got 6 sides obviously. This allows you to grab that nut in areas with very small throw of the wrench. Okay, if I'm going to have a toolbox and I don't know which one to get, this is probably the one I'm going to get. The other common kind is a double box end wrench. This is more for heavy duty mechanics. It's a very strong wrench. This one has 2 different sizes on it. It's not always suitable for the right application. Many times you don't have the room to use this wrench just because of the way it's set up. If you have, doing suspension work and you need to really lean on a bolt without fear of it slipping off and busting your knuckles, this is the wrench you want to use. But for the average homeowner, for the average first-time toolbox, you don't want one of these. Another big wrench I have here is a 6-point. Now compare this 6-point to the 12-point. Let me bring it up here. Oh, well, here's a better example of 12-point, right? There, 6-point and 12-point. You can clearly see the one at the bottom has 6 points. The one on the top has 12 points. They both do the same job. This one can take off a 12-point nut. This one can only take off a 6-point nut, but this one can actually take off both. So this one's more versatile. In my opinion, if you're going to start a toolbox, this is the one you want. Just today I was taking a nut off an alternator, and there was just no room to throw the wrench. I mean, there was just no room. And if I had a 6-point wrench, I probably couldn't have done the job. But a 12-point wrench will do it. This one, of course, is a combination. This is a big wrench. It's a 1-inch wrench, but it's an open end on one side and box end on the other side with a 6-point box end. One word about open end wrenches, I try to stay away from them. Once you put a nut in here and you start applying some torque on it, that the points of the nut tend to want to spread these jaws. Okay, and once you start, you apply 100 pounds of force on this thing, that nut's applying thousands of pounds of force on this little jaws to spread them open, just because of mechanical leverage, what have you. And what happens is if the nut's really frozen on there, it's going to run that nut off, and you're going to bust your knuckles. You're going to ruin the nut. So yes, get one of these combination 12-point, one of these 12-point combination open end box end, but use the open end only where you don't have to apply a lot of force on the nut. Now, one of the newer developments in wrench technology is the gear wrench. Okay, as you can see, this black inner ring. It's a 12-point, and I've never seen it in 6-point, although I'm sure they make them. This one's a 12-point wrench, and it's a regular box end wrench, although it's a little bit bigger profile. So this is a 3/4 and it's a 15 millimeters, so not too far apart size-wise, but you can see the size difference, right? If you don't have a lot of room to work with, you probably want to use this and not this one. In my toolboxes, I use this one because it'll do the job, and if you're on a tight pinch, you don't have the room to work with, this one will do the job. But these are nice, boy, I tell you, these are nice. if you're doing suspension work, anything. Once you know some a nut in a weird place, just get it on there and just bam, 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 knock it out real fast. You know, if you're starting a toolbox and you don't anticipate, and you anticipate being at home where you have access to other tools and you know you have time, I would highly recommend getting one of these gear wrenches. For the average user, you're not gonna have the torque to break unless you live in the East Coast and you got a big nut that's frozen, rusted in place. For the average user here in California, these things work just fine. Many of these can take 200 foot-pounds of torque on them, 150 foot-pounds of torque. You probably won't break these. Okay, buy a good brand, a gear wrench, Craftsman. There's other good brands, of course, Snap-on and those guys. But for a homeowner, for home user, gear wrench works well. They're pretty cheap. They have a lifetime warranty from Sears, and these are nice. They also make these in stubby versions. There's a time and a place for these. As a beginner, you don't need these. Every once in a while you'll get into some weird position inside a car where, the way they put cars together these days, they'll put a part in place and then they'll put another part and they put another part on top of that. So sometimes you just don't have the room to throw a wrench, a full-size wrench, even though in the factory they had the room because they didn't have, let's say, they put the alternator in before they put the power steering pump in. And so they have the room to work with. But once they put that power steering pump, boy, you can't get to the alternator bolt anymore unless you have some weird tools like this. So they make these in stubby versions, the gear wrenches. This one doesn't have an adjuster switch, if you notice. This one has an adjuster switch, so you can go forward and you can go reverse. And it has a slight offset. The ones without an adjuster nut, how do you reverse it? Like that. Just simply reverse the whole wrench. Adjustable wrench. There is a time and a place for these, and there's a time and a place not to use these. Okay. Do not take a tight nut and bolt off, if possible, with an adjustable wrench. Most of the time I use these as my wrench on the back. If I have a nut and a bolt that's going through a piece of work, and the whole thing spins around, you get your wrench on one side, you hold a nut with the adjustable wrench, and you crank on it with this wrench. If possible, try not to use this as your main wrench. Okay, this thing is prone to the jaw spreading and will ruin your nuts and bolts, and you don't want that. It's just, there's definitely a job for these, but taking off for a first time tight nut and bolt, this is not the tool for the job. Finally, I want to talk about the line wrench or flare nut wrench or tubing wrench, whatever folks call these things. And this is basically an open-end wrench, but if you compare this to an open-end wrench, you see how the open-end only got, it grabs a nut on two sides. This thing actually grabs a nut on 1, 2, 3, 4, almost on 5 sides. And the reason they cut this off is so that you, on hydraulic hoses and brake hoses, you can put this over the hose, bring it down, and tighten the nut. And if you do that with a regular wrench, obviously you're gonna, if you put it on there and tighten it up, and you're gonna be trapped. So you can't use those. But these are tubing wrenches. These are specially designed to grab a soft metal like a brass or copper fitting, because most hydraulic systems have a brass or copper fitting, so that when you tighten it up, they mush together and they make a watertight, liquid-tight seal. And so it's designed to grab that soft fitting in many places. This is for brake lines, power steering hoses, hydraulic hoses, all kinds of other purposes. When you need these, you need these. Okay, no doubt about it. Now, can one of these take off a hydraulic hose? Yeah, it can. But if it's one of those things where you're taking it off and on a few times, or if it's on really tight, which they usually are, this one's going to ruin your nut. You're going to bust your knuckles, and you're going to be in a world of hurt. This is simply the right tool for the job. Now, you're asking, where's the pipe wrench? If you're watching this video and you're new to wrenches, don't even think about a pipe wrench. Okay, a pipe wrench is only for turning pipes. It's designed to work in one direction. It's got sharp teeth that, as you pull on it, it grabs the pipe even tighter. It'll ruin your work. It'll mar your work. Unless you're a pipe fitter or you're actually tightening pipes, don't use a pipe wrench. It's not for nuts and bolts. It's not for grabbing tubing or PVC. It's just for steel pipes. Okay, I think you can't even use it on copper pipes, I don't think. So I'm not even going to talk about a pipe wrench. You don't need a pipe wrench, okay, unless you're a pipe fitter. Now, for the beginner, which wrench should I get? You know, if I could go back in time and start over again with my first set of wrenches, I'd get one of these. Whether with or without the reverse lever, it doesn't matter. You don't need the stubby one. I just go for the regular sized, you know, medium length, with or without reverse. Gear wrench, Craftsman, you know, whatever brand you feel, Husky, Lowe's, Cobalt, whatever you feel comfortable with. As a first wrench, I recommend these. If you want to go low budget and not go with those, I'd go with the 12-point combination box end open end wrench with a little offset on it. I wouldn't recommend these. These are good to have in the car, what have you, in case you have a breakdown side of the road. But open end wrenches, they just don't. I just don't use them as much. I find 6-point is great, but in all my years of turning wrenches, you know, I've never had a. I had only a couple occasions where I absolutely needed a 6-point wrench. By far, the winner in this is the combination box end, open end, 12-point wrench. The 12-point, it lets you reset the nut with a very small amount of room, whereas a box end with a 6-point, you know, you need to move it that much, you know. You need at least that much room to turn a nut. 12-point, you just need a couple of you know, few degrees. So hope this helps, folks. You have any more suggestions for videos? You know, if you wanted some more beginner videos, or if you have you know, some kind of wrenches you want me to talk about, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I'll make a video. Thanks for watching.